Hey there, welcome to TomGirl, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, fashion, and adventure. And today I have a very special gift for you. I have Norman Aladjem, and we're talking his book, From Me to You. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hi guys, I'm JJ Jurgens. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I'm so excited to have you here, Norman.
Thank you.
Your book is just incredible, and it's just such a gift, and I just think, well, we're going to dive into it, but
Please.
it's just...
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So this book is, you wrote letters to your daughter, one a week for 52 weeks for a year, and that's what this book is about.
Yeah, so what happened was when my youngest daughter was about 10 or 11 years old, I had so much that I wanted to say to her, and I was already a bit of an older dad. And of course, when you're 10 or 11, you don't have any interest in hearing what your father has to say. You don't have the capacity for it. So I thought, I'm just going to write her. And so what happened was I said to myself, I'm going to write her a letter a week for a year. I wrote the first letter. It was easy. It just flowed out of me. It was so much fun. And then it was time to write the second letter the second week, and I looked at the computer and I said, oh my God, I have nothing to say. I don't know what I'm possibly going to do. So really just to hold myself accountable and to play a bit of a trick on myself, I posted the first letter online, literally on my Facebook page, and said, hey guys, I'm going to be posting one of these every week for a year. Look for it here. Because I didn't want to be embarrassed that I wasn't posting. And so I just made myself write, and I did one a week for a year.
How did it become easier to come up with the topics to write about?
It didn't necessarily become easier. So, you know, sometimes it was easy. Sometimes I found an interesting topic. Sometimes something was going on in the world, and as I like to say, the topic found me. But, you know, anyone who writes will tell you, because I don't really write for a living, anyone who writes for a living will tell you it is hard to face the blank page.
What kind of tools, or what did you go to find the inspiration to get you through when you were just staring at that blank page?
I just thought of my daughter, to tell you the truth, and I thought of the things that I wanted her to know. You know, we were talking a little bit before the broadcast, the notion that when you're a kid, you never think of your parents as protagonists in their own life. You think of them as supporting players in yours. And so I just started thinking to myself, what do I want to tell her either about me or about life, that when she's an adult, that when she can and will read this book, I would want her to know, if God forbid I was no longer here.
What were there some of the things too with your own parents that you wished, you know, you would have been able to ask them about their lives, or questions, or, you know, advice you would have wanted from them?
Everything, everything. I mean, my parents, it was a different generation, it was a different culture. I know very little really about my parents. Funny, when my father turned maybe 75, I videotaped him for 2 hours just asking him questions, because at that time my little daughter was 3. And so I found out so much about my own father that I had no idea about, you know. So I thought, God, you want to pass all that lore on to your children and their children, and, you know.
What is do you have a favorite chapter in the book?
Well, it's like having children. They're all your favorites for different reasons and in different ways. Some of them make me laugh. Some of them make me cry. Some of them just bring out an interesting memory of my life that it's interesting to feel. One of my favorite ones that's a little bit humorous is the chapter called Daddy Sitting, which is about the first time that I took care of my daughter when my wife was out of town and my daughter was like 5 or 6, and our misadventures together. I like that one. One of the ones that's most moving to me is the one about that I wrote as my sister was dying, because not only was I trying to tell my daughter about my sister and who she had been and was, she was still alive at the time, who she was as a person, but I was also coming to terms myself with the fact that my sister was terminally ill at the time. So, you know, I like those two. I like the one, the chapter called The Day I Almost Died in Morocco, about my misadventures in Morocco with one of my entertainment clients. So, you know, they all do different things. I love the one about how I met my wife, Mackenzie's mom, you know.
Yeah. Tell them one about, because we talk about the adventures here, the Morocco one, because you almost died.
I almost died. So I went to the Marrakesh Film Festival with one of my clients who was being honored there. And my client happened to be personal friends, peculiarly enough, with the King and the Prince of Morocco. So we were literally treated like kings while we were there, and they had assigned palace guards to us and all that, and we were in Marrakesh, and then we went up to different parts of the country, and I had to leave early because I had to go to a meeting in New York. My client wasn't ready to leave, so they put me on this little commuter plane from this little town we were to Casablanca, and then I would catch a flight to New York from there. And the plane literally almost crashed, but it all happened in Arabic. And of course, I speak not a word of Arabic. So it was all happening. People were yelling and running up and down, and the face masks were coming. And it was just madness. Imagine the madness of thinking a plane is going down in a language where you don't understand one word. So it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that whole adventure was crazy. And look, all I can say is God was looking after us that day, But to this day, I still don't know what happened to the plane or why it almost crashed or why it didn't.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sure just thankful. What's the first thing you did after you landed after that?
I ate and I drank a big bottle of tequila or something just to celebrate that I was still alive.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that's a good example to your earlier question. It's not something that I would ever tell my children in passing. The notion that one day she'll read that and say, I had no idea that happened to my father. That's wild.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what I was, like we were talking about before. I just think that this book is so wonderful because I have such a close relationship with my dad too, and I think a lot of fathers and daughters, there's always that bond and that special connection. So for you to create this for her and have all these, stories and lessons and advice, I think is just such a gift that, I guess it's jumping ahead, but how old was she then when she read it?
Well, let me back up to your last point, and then I'll address that question. What's interesting is because a lot of people say to me, when did you set out to be an author? And I answer, I did not set out to become an author. I set out to write letters to my daughter. I became an author by accident because what happened, again, I work in the entertainment industry. I'm a talent manager. If you write a book, JJ, I'll sell it for you tomorrow morning, right? But, it's like Dr. Heal Thyself. So just sitting there, I didn't do anything with it. A lot of people told me that should be a book because it started out as a blog, which was very widely read. And so people say, oh, you should publish it as a book. And I was like, whatever, I have clients to worry about. I can't worry about myself. And then about a year and a half ago, a friend of mine who's a very successful book agent in New York randomly friended me on Facebook. And he, in going through my news feed, found the blog, read the blog, and called me up and said, I think this can actually be a book. And I said, look, if you can sell it, do it. My original idea was I was going to write these letters to my daughter, and then for her 18th birthday, she's now 17, for her 18th birthday, I was going to have it bound into a book and give it to her. And as I was writing it, she would say to me, because she was 10, 11, whatever at that time, she would say, what are you doing? Because people would say, oh, I love your blog, your letters to your daughter. She goes, what, can I read the letters? And I said, well, you can, but you'll experience them better when you're an adult. You should read them on your 18th birthday. To answer your question, she's now 17 and has not read them, and continues to say to me, I plan to read them on my 18th birthday.
And her birthday is on September 11th.
Yes, she was born on 9/11, 2001, literally an hour before the planes hit the towers.
That was quite a chapter in the book that you talk about. And then not only was she born, but she had also, you guys had a pretty traumatic experience with her birth. You want to share about that?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about the day that Mackenzie was born is one of the darkest days of our history is also one of the happiest days of my life. And you can't separate those two. And it was such a peculiar experience, even after she was born. Then I'll talk about how she came into the world. But after she was born, an hour later, the planes hit the towers. I was running an agency that had LA and New York offices at the time. And so every other call, the calls were so weird. My first call would be to my father, Dad, we had a daughter, she's healthy, her name's Mackenzie, oh my God, I'm so happy. The next call was to my colleagues in New York saying, are you okay? Is your family accounted for? Is there anything that we can do? And it went back and forth like that all day long. So it was and remains for me to this day, a very strange but uplifting, weirdly uplifting day. The other thing that you're talking about, you really did read the book. I'm very impressed. As she was coming down the chute, so to speak, the umbilical cord got wrapped around her neck. And so when we were sitting there, and as you may or may not know, if the cord gets wrapped around the neck, the baby can suffocate. And so I was sitting there. They had given me the heart monitor to watch and said, look, it shouldn't go below 120, 110. If it does, call us. I subsequently found out that really they do that when they see that a dad is overly nervous, just to give him something to do. And sure enough, I'm there and I'm watching it, and my wife's there, and suddenly I see the heart monitor drop to 110, 100, 60, and within a matter of seconds, it's like at 50 or 60. You can imagine my panic. I called the nurse, and I was trying to sound like I wasn't concerned. I said, oh, there may be something wrong with the machine. And she walked in, and the moment she saw that machine, the thing looked like the MASH unit, right, in the war, and, neonatal crisis specialist, the whole thing. It was really a wild moment, and thank goodness she had an amazing doctor, and Mackenzie turned out to be a wonderful and adorable, healthy young woman. But yeah, it was a very scary moment. It was a very scary moment.
Yeah. Wow. You also talk in the book about having her.
By the way, I'm sorry. I just want to say one other thing, because I'm in the movie business, so I think about story and plot and all that.
Yeah.
We have this crazy moment where I think, oh my God, I may lose my wife and daughter. Please, dear Lord, whatever. Praying with fervor. Okay, now it's all fine. She's fine. Oh, thank God. Take a breath. What's going on the TV?
Yeah.
So just a wild day.
Yeah, I can imagine just the roller coasters of that day.
Yeah. And she was born here in LA at Cedars, and that place was locked down like a fortress. Yeah, it was a crazy day. It was a crazy day. I'm sorry, but I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's okay. What was I going to say? Oh, I know you also talk about how your daughter your wife had two older daughters as well. So this was your first daughter together, and you're having a daughter later in life, as you talk about. What are some of the things that I know that was one of your fears, that I'm going to be older, like when some dads get to see their daughters get married at this age or around for this age, like that was one of your trepidations. How's that been now, being having a daughter at an older age?
Well, look, for me it's been amazing. I can't speak for her. Interestingly enough, there have been some practical realities to being an older dad, and then kind of the overarching concerns that I had about being an older dad. The practical realities was, she would be 2-3 years old. I'd be at the toy store with her, and I remember we walked in once, and I took her. She wanted to buy a doll, whatever. We go to the counter, and the person behind the counter says, "Oh, Grandpa's buying you a doll." So that's one of the things about being an older dad. But look, my fear, and I do talk about that in the book, was I don't know if younger dads do this, but as an older dad, I find that I measure my life in what I call Mackenzie years, right? If I live to be 65, I'll see her to this age. If I live to be 75, 85, whatever. Because, and I do talk about this in the book, certainly nothing is given in life, period. But there are certain things that when you're a dad at 25 or 30, barring an accident of nature or fate or whatever, you're going to be around to watch them graduate high school, to watch them get married, to watch them do whatever things they're going to do. Not so clear, even with our medical advances and so forth, that that's going to be the case for an older dad. It has forced me to really savor her and her childhood in a way that I'm not saying I wouldn't have enjoyed, and certainly young parents enjoy their children desperately, but it allowed me and forced me to focus on what that was. And also because I was already in my 40s, my career was already reasonably well established. I had a reason. I wasn't worried about how I was going to pay the rent or feed me or the family or whatever. So it took that pressure off me. Young parents, when you talk to young fathers especially, they talk about having to come to understand, especially as your kids become teenagers and they think you're very annoying and all those things, right? Younger fathers have said to me, it has been a learning experience to understand that it's not an ego match, that I don't have to win, I don't have to show you I'm boss, all that. As an older dad, I've had many afflictions. That's not one of them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And don't you think it also having all that experience and gives you the ability to write something like this for her with all the advice and your own life experiences and things that you've learned?
Yes, I think so. Again, I'm a little careful in that answer because I think young parents have plenty of advice as well. I'm not in any way suggesting I have more things to say or more things to teach, and I'm sure I make 100 mistakes in my child rearing. But look, you know, she has turned out to be an amazing young kid. And
how do you look at the role of being a dad right now in this day of time, especially when we're in like with all the female empowerment movements and all the discussions that have been going on, especially here in Hollywood? So what does it mean for you to be being a dad right now, raising girls in this environment?
Well, I don't know if your siblings are female or male, but I have 3 daughters. I love the fact that I have daughters. A lot of my business partners and colleagues are females. I think, having represented a lot of actresses in my career, there's a tremendous amount of misogyny and sexism in show business. Forget the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. That's a whole other level of horror. But what I want to do with my daughters and what I hope this book will do, not only for my daughters, but you or any other daughter who might read this book at some point, is to give them a sense that they are whole. One of my to go back to an earlier question, you asked me about my favorite chapters. One of my favorite chapters is called The Birds and the Bees. And it's me writing to my daughter about the birds and the bees, right? And what I tried to capture in the chapter was what I was actually feeling, which was the awkwardness and embarrassment and the horror of having to tell your daughter about those things. And I try to do it with some humor as well. But interestingly enough, what I found, this is the other thing that the book did for me, and I know I'm veering off your question, but what I found was that when Mackenzie was about 15 and a half years old, I had written the chapter, obviously, about the birds and the bees, so I had an opportunity to articulate the thoughts in my head and to think through what I felt about the physical piece of it, the emotional piece of it, the medical piece of it, all those things, the man versus woman piece of it. And we were at dinner. My wife and I were at dinner with Mackenzie and one of her friends, and somehow, I don't know how it came out, Mackenzie said something about the birds and the bees. And she didn't say, I want to know about it, but she somehow mentioned it. And so we ended up having a dinner conversation about the birds and the bees, which was not at all awkward, was not at all embarrassing, was not at all anything. I think in large measure because I already knew what I wanted to say.
Yeah, you already had it out. Yeah. No, I love that chapter too, and I love actually that whole writing style that you have, because yes, you laid out the things like always wear a condom, those types of things that you want to tell your children. But you also were like, embrace the passion, embrace the fun. I hope you do it a lot. Like there's just such a realness and such an open, honest voice that you have in here that I think that's one thing. Was there a time when you thought that maybe you weren't going to publish it because maybe it was just like too personal to just your family, your daughter, and or maybe other people wouldn't relate, or maybe it just should be kept private?
It's actually the converse. I never set out. I never thought it would be published, right? But it was out there as a blog, so people were reading it. Tens of thousands of people, weirdly, across the world were reading it, and people were writing me emails and all that kind of stuff. But when when we got an offer to get the book published, I went to everyone in my family, and I said, we have this offer. Tell me how you feel about it. Because if any of them had said, we don't want you to do it, I would never have done it. I would never have done it. The most amazing thing about getting the book published is when the agent made the deal, he reserved the audio rights and then made a separate deal with Audible to do an audiobook. And as part of the deal, I got to read it.
Oh, great.
And that was the most amazing experience. And it was funny because I walked into the booth. The two things about that: number one, as we were talking earlier, right? The notion that I represent artists who do these sorts of things. And now here I am in a booth reading a book was a wild and fun experience. But the other thing that was interesting was when the sound engineer came in and said, okay, are you ready to go? I said, I'm ready. I just want to tell you, because I know you haven't read the book, you're going to hear it as I speak it. At least 10 times, you're going to have to stop it because I'm going to be bawling. And in fact, he did, and I did, and all that. But it was just really an amazing. That's the other thing about the audiobook for me. 50 years from now, when I assume I'll be long gone, and if not, I'll be a blithering idiot, right? She'll be able to listen to the voice of her father when he was reasonably vibrant, reasonably cogent. That feels to me, and I don't want to sound narcissistic, an amazing gift for my whole family, not just for her, for the family.
Oh, for sure. You know, people hold on to just voicemail messages, you know, so to have this letters that you actually wrote to her and then in your voice,
But I'm proud of the
special.
letters. The letters are intimate and the letters are personal. But to your question, they're also, they really cover universal themes. And when it was being posted as a blog, and even now that it's been published, people say to me, oh my God, this really touches on what I'm feeling about my father, my daughter, the birds and the bees conversation, whatever all those things are. It's been amazingly, amazingly fulfilling. And again, going back to my real life, which is representing artists, you know, when you think about what constitutes immortality for an artist, it's the book that you write, it's the film that you make, it's the record you record. I'm sort of immortality adjacent because I represent those people. But this was my little, you know, slice at it.
And there's stuff in there that I think all age levels can relate to too, because it's, you know, talking about the different stages in life. One that I really liked too was you gave to your daughter Heather when she was trying out for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and just getting that letter about, you know, facing through her fears. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and obviously that you'll appreciate that as an athlete yourself, right? The notion. So my oldest daughter Heather had been a San Diego, I can't remember what the name is, it was whatever, just under the NBA, the Shockwave or something. Yeah. And she decided to try for an NBA team. And so she got to the finals of the tryouts to be a Cleveland Cavaliers cheerleader. And the night before, you know, she was in Cleveland, my wife had gone with her. I was in LA looking after Mackie and trying not to keep
get
her
locked out.
Trying to get locked out. But the night before, I just felt so helpless to help. I don't know if that makes sense. But so I just wrote her this letter. And the letter, and again, because I was an athlete myself, the letter was about facing your fears. The letter was about understanding in the human condition what your competitors are feeling and facing. And, you know, I mean, you know this as an athlete, right? You look at somebody across the court, in your case, and you think, oh my God, I'm so worried and nervous, and they just look cool as a cucumber. To them, you look cool as a cucumber. So I tried to, in that letter, give her a little bit of that context and also inspire her to just leave it on the dance floor, you know, because that's what, in the end, that's what life is, right?
Yeah, I loved it because sometimes, you know, at that age, I mean, I remember when I was going through it, try to try out for the basketball team, you are thinking that. You're already in your head thinking, oh, well, she's taller than me, or she's stronger than me, or she's got this and she's got that, you know, and you're not thinking that everybody else in that room is going through having those same doubts, those same fears, those same. So I love that you took that approach with her, because I can't imagine, you know, getting something like that right before you have to go face. I'm sure that just gave her such a wave of confidence, and even maybe just some ease and some calm into going into that. To just
I hope so.
Do her
It
best.
calmed me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it helped her. And then the one thing, you know, the one of the little anecdotes that I tell in that letter, which I love, and again, just as an athlete, I can so relate to it, is a story of the Olympic athlete who, you know, for a year or 2 years before the Olympics is in some sweaty old rickety gym doing the high jump, you know, just in front of nobody, doing it 10,000 times in his sweats, whatever. And then the Olympics come, and sure enough, it's his third jump for the gold medal, 50,000 people screaming. He knows there's 20 million people watching on TV, and he jumps and he gets the gold medal. And then when he's being interviewed, they said, what did that feel like? And he said, I don't really remember. When it came down to that third jump, I just said, okay, I'm in that rickety gym. I've done this jump 10,000 times. Let's do 10,001.
Visualization.
So I wanted her to just contextualize that. You know, so that really not so that she would make it, although of course I desperately wanted her to make it, but so that she could go out there and savor the experience of being in the finals of being an NBA cheerleader.
And then Mackenzie, she's also been acting from a very early age.
Yes.
So how has it been kind of navigating her? You know the entertainment industry very well, and I know you had some fears maybe of her
Yes.
going down that route.
Yes.
So how's it kind of been raising her in that environment?
Well, look, from my, I would not have urged her to do it. I've known enough kid actors to see the pitfalls and the landmines and all that. And Mackenzie from the earliest of ages was just locked in on wanting to do that. And it's funny because I had this conversation with my wife at that time. I said, I don't want her to do it. You know, she has plenty of time for that. Let her be a kid. And my wife, who's really the uber parent in the couple, said to me, Norm, here's the thing. She has this amazing passion for this. It's so hard in life to find something you're passionate about ever, let alone at that age. Let her talk to a therapist 20 years later about something else, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but she has loved it. And look, for us, again, sometimes kid actors are in it sometimes for the wrong reasons. Not because they want to do it, but because it's a dream of the parent, because the parent needs the money, because the parent wants to live through the kid. I didn't need my daughter's money. I know plenty of stars. I didn't need her to meet anybody. So for us, it gave us the opportunity to just let her enjoy it. Like I enjoyed Little League baseball, except it's almost as if I was playing Little League in the majors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been wonderful to watch it. It's been wonderful. You know, she has a wonderful little nest egg to start life with that she has no idea about, by the way. But you know, she's had an amazing childhood, and that makes me happy.
And she already has a SAG nomination for
She does.
Nurse Jackie,
She
and that's one of
does.
the highest honors for actors.
She does.
Yeah.
And then again, and this goes to how good a parent my wife is. She was nominated for a SAG award, and it was all those things. I mean, it was like Cinderella, right? You know, I can't remember the name of the person. I wish I did, but some very famous kid designer gave her lent her a dress. Showtime Network sent a car. Glam Squad. She literally sat next to Denzel Washington at the award. I mean, it was the craziest thing. And and then we went to all the after parties. It was just amazing. Which, by the way, was an amazing experience for me to be there as a dad, as opposed to a guy working those things.
Yeah.
But so we get home about 1:30 in the morning. You know, she's had the night of her life. The next morning, my wife says to her, "So Mackenzie, did you have fun last night?" And Maggie goes, "Oh my God, it was so amazing. It was just incredible. I loved it." And my wife goes, "Good. Now clean your room and come downstairs for your chores." Right? So
back to reality.
Yeah. So look, again, I always say that as a parent, I don't know if you have kids yet, but as a parent, whatever you're going to teach them about values and things like that, you're going to teach them by the time they're 12, would be my guess, maybe even earlier. So we try to do that. She, thank God, seems to have turned out to be an amazing young woman. Beyond that, I just want to savor it and watch it and laugh with her, and
I love one of your pieces of advice in here was to your active listening. Can you talk about that piece of advice that you give her? Because I definitely circled that, and I've used that used it and recognized it in my life as well.
Well, I find, and I say this in the book, I find that active listening is the great competitive advantage that no one takes advantage of, right? And so the notion is, if you think about what people do when they're interacting with each other, I don't know, and usually when people are introduced to each other, oh, JJ, this is Norm, Norm, this is JJ. You hear JJ, I hear Norm. 2 seconds later, I can't remember your name, right? It's not a function of having a bad memory. It's a function of not listening actively, right? And so I learned early on in my career through this weird circumstance that if you listen to someone, that most people, they want to be heard. Unless you're in politics, they don't even care if you agree with them. They just want you to hear them, see them. I see you. I hear what you're saying. And if you can listen actively as people are talking, I think you can engage in real time. You can, it's funny because people who know me well in the business world. So here's one thing I always do, and I picked it up at that seminar 100 years ago, right? Where if I'm in a negotiation, I never get angry in a negotiation, because when you get angry, you lose focus, right? Your emotions are in charge of you. What I will try to do is get the other guy angry if I can, for just that reason, right? But what I always do is I try to listen to what they say, repeat what they say so that they feel heard, and then tell them that I acknowledge what they've said and that what they've said makes sense to me and that I might feel the same way in their side and all that. I always try to do that when I'm in heated negotiations or difficult negotiations in my work. People who know me well and have seen me do it. Like sometimes I've been to negotiate against somebody and, I'll start yelling and they'll start laughing and say, you don't yell when you're angry, knock it off, So, but active listening, really paying attention to people. Number one, it's an advantage in business and in life. And number two, what a wonderful thing to actually learn about people by listening to them. What do you want? What do you need? So that's that chapter. That's that chapter.
Let's talk about your business for a little bit, if you don't mind. I think we have some time to talk about that.
I'll talk as long as you'll be talking. I'm fine.
I'm looking up. We got time here. So you've been producer, talent manager. Now you have Mainstay.
Yes.
You want to kind of talk about your evolution in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, I started life as an attorney. I was an entertainment lawyer for a number of years. Then I was an agent for a long, long time. About 7 years ago, I would say, I left the agency business and became a manager and producer, which I have really loved because, as an agent, agenting is very transactional, right? So I've got to get JJ a job. And once I get JJ a job, then I'll get a job for Darlene and then Sam and then Bill, right? That's what agents do. You traverse in information and it's a transactional thing. Management is career architecture, right? It allows me, I do a lot more for a lot fewer people. When I was an agent, for example, I put a lot of movies together, a lot of TV shows together. As an agent, you put the movie together and then great, I'll see you at the premiere. If there's a +1, right? As a manager or as a producer, I'm involved in the casting. I'm involved in the budgeting. If the generator goes down on set, I got to solve that problem. You really feel like you're much more an integral part of the creative process. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. I've been very entrepreneurial my whole life, and I've had a number of different iterations. This one seems to really fit my personality.
And were there times when maybe the career wasn't going as well, or you took other, chances? How did you get yourself through those times when maybe you were kind of doubting yourself, or?
Well, there's a chapter in the book, which is, I assume where you're going. There's a chapter in the book called The Importance of Failure, right? And the thrust of the book isn't that failure is important. It's actually the converse. It's that you should be willing to risk failure to get to success, right? Whether it's a young man asking a young woman out on a date, or a young woman asking a young man out on a date, or asking for, the biggest number on a deal, or anything in between, right? If you're not willing to risk failure, if you're not willing to risk falling off the tree, you cannot reach for the highest fruit. So I talk in the book about some of my own failures because I also wanted my daughter to understand that. She sees me now as a very successful individual. We live in a nice house. We take vacations. It wasn't always like that in my life. And if you're an entrepreneur or an artist, you're going to have very high highs. You're going to have very low lows. And I wanted her, or you, dear reader, to understand that sometimes failure is the price of success. Success is, I'm not the first or brightest person to say this. Success is never a straight line. Success is jagged, 1 up, 3 back, 4 forward, 10 down. But I think that's weirdly, one of the secrets of my success is a willingness to risk failure. But I talk about some periods in my entrepreneurial life in the book where I was failing miserably. And I tell the one story about, again, you as an athlete may appreciate it. I'm a runner, and I always used to go running on Venice Beach, which is this crazy ass, excuse my language, is this crazy beach in Los Angeles. And I remember I was completely down. I was 6 figures into consumer debt. I didn't know if I could ever get back into the business, from the very high highs. I had gone to the very low lows. And I remember running down the beach, bawling my eyes out, thinking, what have I done? I have destroyed my life. I will never be able to support a family. I was tilting at windmills. What in the world was the matter with me? And I tell that story in the book, and I tell that story to anybody who will listen. because I think it's important to know that I overcame it, that I had it, and now that I sit in a comfortable perch, when I think about that period of my life, some of my most interesting experiences, some of the things that made me a better human being, a better husband, a better father, a better friend, came from those failures and the lessons that I learned from those failures. But I didn't set out to fail, obviously.
What would you say are some of the like greatest lessons that you have learned, in life or business, just that, or things that you wish maybe somebody would have told, you would have gotten a letter from somebody saying when you were young, like, oh, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was 20 or 15, or, is there anything like that?
Yes. I think the most important thing is go on the TomGirl show. That's the most
yes,
important,
for sure.
That's the most important lesson that I've learned.
Perfect.
I think, and again, I can't remember the name of the chapter, but there's a chapter in the book about that as well, because I do a lot of public speaking at colleges and whatever. I try to tell people what I wish people had said to me. When I was a youngster, and the people of authority in my life, whether it was parents or teachers or coaches or whatever, and they would say, you can't achieve this because your family's an immigrant family, because you're not tall, because we have no money, because, all the different reasons justifying why I could never achieve this, that, or the other. I think what I wish somebody had told me, and, fortunately I became it and overcame it, but what I wish somebody had told me was, you could do anything you want, you could be anything you want, tall, short, thin, fat, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. It's what is your passion? What is your drive, right? If you have, I always say this to artists, and I say it to clients and potential clients, here's the thing. You need talent. Hard to sustain success without talent. You can be an overnight sensation, but to sustain, you need talent. But a lot of people in LA and New York have talent, right? What the way to sustain is to have a commitment to excellence, a strong work ethic, integrity, a passion for the craft of what you're doing. I wish somebody had said all that to me, right? What was mostly said to me as an immigrant kid growing up in Cleveland, Ohio was, yeah, you've made it to America. That's what I wish somebody had said to me. And so that's what I try to say to people. But I also say to, actors and writers and directors, when they're starting out, I say, if you want to get into the business because you want to go to premieres and you want to ride in limos and this and that, rent a limo for the weekend. It's much cheaper. It's much easier, right? You want to be in it for the passion of the craft, right? If you want to be in sports, it should be because you love basketball, not because you think there are millionaires at 20 in the NBA. Because once you're out of the NBA, now where are you, right? But I say that to artists, and I have found that the clients that I've represented in my career who have sustained stardom were not chasing stardom. Interestingly enough, they were chasing immortality in a weird way, right? They were chasing their passions. That's exciting stuff. That's for me, who can't sing or dance or act or do what you do. That is an amazing group of people to spend your life with.
Well, and clearly you have your passion for your side of it. So what do you love most about your job?
Well, what I love, that's a fantastic question, by the way, JJ. Here's what I love about my job. I can't act. I can't sing, right? Those are not my gifts. But I love artistic people. I love the arts. My father was an orchestra conductor and a composer. I grew up with the arts in my house. But here's what I've learned about artists as opposed to what I'll call business creative people, right? Artists, they have a thing that they want to do and they go for that thing. And if there's a brick wall there, they'll just keep going to the wall and going to the wall and going to the wall. What I know how to do is say, maybe we should go around. Maybe we should go over the wall. I know somebody underneath the wall, right? And so to be able to say, hey, JJ, here's what you want to do, and this is your talent and your gift, and then you have a commitment to excellence and work ethic and all that. I can help you realize your creative dreams, and I can help you find your immortality. It's funny, I was an agent for a long time, and I would say there's so much nobility in being an agent. And people would say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's an oxymoron, nobility and agenting. But think about it. If I can help you realize your dreams, make sure that your stories get told in the world, is that not noble?
I'd say so.
That gets
Definitely.
and it's funny because I was an older dad, and I'm even older now. I have a fire in my belly for that today, every bit as much, if not more, than when I was 25 years old.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does for sure. Yeah, no, I thought. I don't know if you want to say names, or do you have like a favorite story of somebody that you've worked with? I know, and here you talk about missing Sheryl Crow.
Oh yeah.
Well,
that was
representing.
I wrote it. There's a chapter about hubris.
Yeah.
And as an example of my own hubris, I talk about the time that somebody set me up with Sheryl Crow before she became Sheryl Crow, and I was, I was producing a movie at the time. I was very, too big for my britches, and of course she went on to have a wonderful career without me. But look, I don't know that I can really answer the question, because the best stories, I don't think I would want to attach names to them.
Yeah, sure, understandable. Yeah. Wow.
But I will say I've had, I've been all over the world. I've had tons of fun. I've helped people out of dire situations and into wonderful situations. That stuff that, whenever the end of my journey is, and hopefully it's not for many, many years, that will be I want to have a life fully lived. And I think I can certainly say that, both up and down, both up and down.
And what do you find to be the most challenging of your career?
Well, there's an old joke that representatives use, and the joke is, this job would be so great if it wasn't for the clients, right? So the challenge is, your clients are humans with intelligent thought and with their own human foibles and needs and desires and all that. And, if I make a wonderful microphone, I know that microphone's going to work. I can have a client who is fantastically gifted, but may have demons that don't allow them to work in the same way that a microphone will work. So it's one of the very challenging things, which weirdly is also one of the most fulfilling, which is a funny juxtaposition, is to help an artist through their personal challenges to get to the promised land, and the Emmys and Academy Awards and, whatever else.
So what else is coming for you, or will there be more letters, or other projects in the works? Well,
I would love to. People ask me that all the time. I would love to write more letters. I would love to write another book. I'm not sure I have one thing left to say.
I think you'll have some more.
I want to write. I have an idea. I want to write a business book, and I have no idea what it would be, but the title I think will sell 1 million copies. And the title of the book would be "Never Have a Good Idea and Other Secrets to Success in Business and in Life." Right?
Yeah.
That's my next book.
Yep.
I've announced it here. I've announced it here.
Well, we'll look forward to reading that one when it's out.
Yes, indeed. In the meantime, hopefully your viewers will read that.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody, where can they get copies of this book?
Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, your local bookstore. But I think, again, the world is changing. The marketplace of choice for 99% of the people seems to be Amazon. Or if you want to hear the audiobook, if you want to hear my wonderful dulcet tones, Audible.
Okay, guys, and I'm telling you, I cried. You have another book, and we've talked about my dog with cancer on the show before, and you talk about losing your dog, and there's so many just great moments that I really recommend. This is like a perfect Christmas present for fathers, daughters, everybody out there in your family, and it's just, you'll love it. And it's a really fast read. You just get sucked into it, and you get just sucked into the stories, and it's just really fun and enjoyable, and I think great for you guys this holiday. So check it out. It's amazing. So
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for having me on. What a treat.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time. So
my
it's
pleasure.
been so much fun.
Pleasure.
All right, well, I think that about wraps us up for tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. Next week, we will have fitness model Julana Dazan in, so we'll be talking a little bit of fitness. So thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.